This was the first time Jonathan Burgess walked into Emmanuel Church in Coloma, which his great-grandfather Rufus M. Burgess once owned.
Crazy. You know, to think that, gosh, kids were educated in this church. Little African-American kids. And our family had something to do with it. So that's a joy.
At the age of 23, Rufus M. Burgess and his mother, both slaves at the time, were brought to California by their slave owner. They traveled by wagon train and were set free once they arrived in Coloma.
For all the little kids that are African American, even white kids, Asian kids, there was a huge Chinese population here. It shows unity, and to be able to display that history is phenomenal. And so for the Burgess family, we're grateful. We'll be more grateful when the state of California comes and reconciles.
Jonathan says the Burgess family learned from original documents provided to them by past state historians who confirmed that Rufus had purchased the church, which became the first African-American church in the region, and that Rufus's father, also named Rufus, was a landowner as well.
To know that our great-great-grandfather came over as a slave, was eventually freed, but worked and gained something that a lot of families fortunately were able to keep, which is a significant amount of wealth and land. It brings about pride.
But that pride is accompanied by sadness. Jonathan says the state is aware that Rufus had owned the church and they should recognize it as being last owned by the Burgesses. Yet there is no outward recognition about the family or that it was even at one time a black church. The sign outside the church doors mentions that it was built in 1855 and considered the oldest Episcopal church building in the state.
Or tell me that this is in fact the African church, and yet I meet with state park officials again and they tell me, well, the church was someplace else. That's disturbing.
John's great-grandmother died in 1921, he says, the same year the Methodists acquired the church and made major repairs.
So how it fell into the hands of the Methodists again, it was never sold from the Burgess family.
So after they cut it, and then they dry it, sticker it all in here.
Chief Ranger Barry Smith says the Burgess family came to them with information the state wasn't aware of and that historians are gathering data to investigate.
There's a bigger picture. And we realize this was not only where gold was discovered, but this is where diversity came into California.
When people say the Burgesses in California, we are a huge part of California history. The fact that our great-grandfather was a blacksmith.
Jonathan wants kids who visit the historic site in Coloma to know that blacks were not just laborers, but landowners too. A sign inside the blacksmith shop recognizes it as being the first blacksmith shop in Coloma, which the family says was operated by Rufus. John also says land in the area were once sprawling orchards owned by Rufus and wants them to be renamed as the Burgess Orchards. John says Rufus's descendants today are not seeking to get the land back, but says with all the supporting documents and information, reparations are long overdue from the state to the family. The African American Gold Rush Association has been filed with the state as a nonprofit. It will share inclusive, diverse, and equitable gold rush history.
This is great-great-granddaddy. Nelson was his slave name, Nelson Bell. So this is my great-grandfather. That's great-great. And that's really what it's all about. You know, my mom always said that, you know, he was such an important figure, and recognizing him, not only him, but the other, for who they were and what they did. Both great-great-granddaddy and great-granddaddy.
In Coloma.
And told them they can rest now.
Rowena Shaddix, Fox 40 News.